What's up, guys? Welcome back. I know it's been a while since I've done a video and I've been incredibly busy at work and doing life stuff. So I wanted to go ahead and finally actually put something together for you guys, going over what exactly I have been doing to the doozy lately. And it has been quite the learning process, and I am here to enlighten you on everything that I've done. I've got part numbers, I got information, and it's all for you guys. So take notes, feel free to reference this video because I'll be putting all the information and part numbers down below in the description. So here's what I did with the build. It was a lengthy process. There was a lot of learning involved, and I think I've definitely got it all down now. And I think this will be helping you guys a lot with going ahead and getting what you need to lock your differentials for your passports or your rodeos and have fun with it. Because there's not much information about these cars out there, and it took me a while to get all the pieces together and do quite a bit of trial and error, actually. So I'm going to break this down into 3 parts. Today I'm going to go ahead and do the rear axle, and then I'm going to do the front axle, and then I'm going to go over what I have done to the transfer case. So that is 3 videos. I will be doing 1 piece each of the driveline swap. So hopefully you guys learn a little bit about this car and what I have found, things that I had issues with, things that I had success with. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into it. I don't trust myself to do differentials just quite yet. I work on cars, in fact, I do it for a living, but that is one thing that I'm not quite comfortable with yet. And every car is different, they all set up differently. So I just thought I would go ahead and send it out to someone who knew exactly what they're doing. They do this a lot, and they have a much better understanding of how to set backlash and pinion depth, because it can be a complicated process. And if you're not comfortable with it, I would highly recommend that you send it out to a professional to have them set up your ring and pinions. So what ended up happening, me and JD actually went to a local junkyard, pulled an axle out of 99 Rodeo with an LSD 410. It's pretty much the same thing that I have in the doozy currently. So the process started with loading it up into the back of the car, bringing it back to the shop, and completely dismantled it. We removed the diff cover, we removed the carrier and pinion, we pulled the axles out, and then I did a complete thorough cleaning of the entire housing itself. At this point, I actually ended up taking everything to the shop that did the benchtop build. I got it back from him and installed it into the car. But as far as the parts go, if you refer back to my other video about future plans, I actually kind of touched base a little bit on the pinion issues that I had kind of going on. There's a couple options out there. Me and JD were going over pinion options. What I ended up using was a Jeep JK, which is non-Rubicon 456 ring and pinion, which is a 26 spline pinion. So I couldn't use the flange on that. But I did find out that the WJ Grand Cherokees, which was from 99 to 2004, I think, those WJ Cherokees did in fact use a 29 spline pinion. So I could have used the original Isuzu flange and put it on that pinion and been good. However, it's a crush washer. The JK uses shims. So the issue that I had with that was I can't use the flange that I have now. However, there is a flange that you could use which does a 1310 conversion. You can remove that and use a 1310 U-joint and bolt it up. So I ended up going with the Yukon conversion kit, and I did that. So that old flange from Isuzu is now gone. When I had the drive shaft out, I replaced the U-joints. That was a perfect time to get those new U-joints in and set. One issue I did have come up when I did install the axle back into the doozy is I found that with that conversion, flange sits about 1 inch further away from its original length of the drive shaft. So I had just stretched it just a little bit more so it would sit into that conversion flange for those 1310 U-joints instead of using the Isuzu flange. It was concerning at first for me because I wasn't entirely sure if that was gonna hold well enough or have driveline issues or vibrations by extending the drive shaft out a little bit more into a position where it's not normally operating. you know? So I've been driving on it for a while now, and actually I haven't noticed any driveline vibration issues. As far as flex goes, I haven't gotten it into its full potential yet, but it seems pretty good. So it doesn't seem like that drive shaft is really being pulled excessively. And when I did the install, I did it on a lift anyways, which had the axle at full droop. And that's when I had it extended about 1 more inch to get it into the flange. And then while I was in there, I went ahead and I installed new StopTech slotted rotors. I put EBC green stuff brake pads, and then I also installed independent 4x steel braided brake lines, and that is a 5-piece kit. So there's 2 fronts and then 3 rears. After the entire axle is in and set, I got the final component that I need to run this locker, the air compressor. The air compressor is a small one, and it's good enough just to run lockers. It's not really efficient to be airing up tires. It's made primarily just to run lockers. And it is made to run 2 lockers for the front and rear. That is the CK-SA12 compressor. I found actually on Facebook Marketplace, offered him 150 bucks for it, and he took it. So I went ahead and met up with him, got a brand new in the box, tape was not cut at all, an Arabic compressor. So that was really great. That saved some money there. And then the next day I went to go and install it. For installation, I already had planned out where I want the buttons and the controls to be, because I like to keep my wiring tight and factory. I don't like having a bunch of buttons all over the place. So in the center console of the doozy, I actually removed a little coin slot and the transmission control buttons for the winter and power mode, which are pretty much useless anyways. So what I actually ended up doing was I popped it out, plugged it back in, and zip tied it under the center console on the carpet. So that way it wouldn't move, and if it did have any issues with it being unplugged or missing, I'm not gonna have a check transmission light or whatever. So it's there, it's just tucked away. So I removed the center console and I installed the buttons onto the center console. The kit actually comes with a sub harness for that, which is super nice. The installation process was a breeze. It was really simple. I routed the sub harness under the center console with the buttons, and then there is a separate harness that you can route into the body. So what I ended up doing was that sub harness was on the console outside of the car, done. And then I took the second harness and routed it under the carpet to the left side of the car, and then back along the side, right along where there's already a wiring harness being routed. And then I went into, well, probably one of the best spots I could think of to mount an air compressor, and that's inside the car. Inside the car is going to keep a lot of dust and any water out. So I installed it right where the spare tire jack would be, and that spare tire jack is now in my roof box, out of the way. So in that spare tire jack cubby is the jack, and it's got a mounting plate on it. That mounting plate I kept and I modified. I actually ended up taking that hoop off, throwing that little hoop away. That mounting plate, I cut off the little edges and installed the mounting bracket that comes with the compressor onto the jack mount itself, and cleaned it up, primed it, painted it. That mount is back in its location with the addition of the compressor mounts bolted to there. So the compressor is firmly mounted in there, in that one spot, and it just fits. It fits so perfectly. Actually, it really does work really nicely. It was almost like it was made for it. So now I got a nice little trap door in there, keeping it nice and covered. I can access it and service it as I need if anything were to happen. And then once that was done, it was on to routing the airline. The airline is a final thing that goes from the actuation solenoid down to the locker to engage the locker. So I installed the air line into the quick fitting that came with the compressor kit, and then I routed it up and then over and down through the body cavity and out a little rubber plug. There's actually a little body plug under the car, and I routed that air line out through there, and then I ran it along some other lines, some of the evap lines for the charcoal canister, and then down into the locker. So I'm not a huge fan of how I had routed it. I made it just kind of work. I want to see how that line is going to be routed when I start flexing out the rear end, if it's going to be hitting the exhaust. The exhaust is more my concern because I don't want that airline hitting the exhaust and melting over time or rubbing or wearing out. And then you'll know that I won't have a locker. So I do plan on actually carrying some extra locker line, but I'm gonna have to test out to see the routing to see if actually it is good where it's at. If not, I'll have to modify it. Other than that, that is a 456 swap. It seemed, you know, relatively simple, but in the grand scheme of things, there was quite a bit of homework done for this. Me and JD put a lot of time and effort into figuring out what exactly the axle needed to work coherently as one unit, because like I said, there's very minimal information on these cars. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know down below in the comment section and I'll get back to you. In the description will be part numbers for the things that I had used, and I know that I'll be seeing you guys on the front diff swap. That's the next video I'm coming out with, is the front axle REGEAR, because you can't have mixed gear ratios. That doesn't work. So you gotta match it. And so follow along and watch the next video to see exactly what I did to make it work. See you guys.